Great. So welcome to the call, everyone. I am here with Adam Peplinski. Adam, thank you so much for joining me, for slotting us in. I know you've got some time with your fiance who you haven't seen in a month. So we so appreciate you just giving us some of your time this morning, and say a big thank you to her as well.
I will. Thank you, Nick.
So guys, Adam here you've got quite an impressive background, which I want you to expand on a little bit more. But just so everyone who is listening in understands, you are a certified financial planner. You've been a partner and also financial consultant at big firms like Fidelity, which most people would have heard of. You are the founder of Bellrave Capital and also Plan X, which I'm excited to chat a little bit about as well. But as we kick off, can you give us a bit of a background? Like, how did you go from this very much, I would say, traditional finance, right, Fidelity, and moving into this new, let's say, new space and infrastructure of the technology being blockchain and also AI, where we're at in the world? What's that journey been like for you?
Absolutely. So I appreciate being able to share my journey. It's a unique one. I grew up on a cherry farm in northern Michigan and kind of had an affiliation with health and wellness. I read the Merck manual when I was 12 and became a huge hypochondriac. So naturally, I was going to go be a doctor. And I did the whole chemistry pre-med route. I actually needed more volunteering. So I ended up doing Teach for America. And so I taught high school biology in inner city Chicago, went over to Detroit and taught fourth and fifth grade elementary and loved teaching math. And so that got me, help with my brother, got me into finance. And then I moved up the ranks and became partner in record time at Fidelity Investments, and then really got into their complex planning team. So we built plans for politicians, government officials, and then we built plans for ultra high net worth families. And when you get to sort of live vicariously through those people, you get to see, hey, what worked in their life? And a lot of them who hit those thresholds, they were entrepreneurs, they were business owners, they were maybe taking over a family business. But one thing they all knew was that times were changing. And when you have this adoption of new technology, the question really becomes, as a financial advisor, you need to place capital as to where do you think capital is going to appreciate in the future. And when you look at this technology and you see the world changing at a very, very rapid pace, it's like, I know that route at a traditional firm would always be there for me, but I knew I needed to do something different. So stepped out, built a family office and have a financial planning model, and then really got involved in AI, blockchain, decentralization, which to most are all buzzwords, and they were to me. But it's really just looking at this tidal wave coming and trying to place myself in a perfect area to understand what's happening.
So Adam, I love that you said that. There's a couple of things that make sense to me there, that you were a teacher first, because I think what you are, not that I think, I know what you are brilliant at is bridging this gap that feels really big to a lot of people. I know it did for me as well. Like, I've been learning about this space for 2 years, just over 2 years now. But the gap feels big at first and it feels scary. And you are really brilliant at clearly breaking down what this looks like. The decades old infrastructure that we've been operating on from a financial perspective, being in your industry, and what this transition into the new infrastructure looks like, that's supported by technology like blockchain and also AI. And the thing is, it's going gangbusters, right? Like, that's all that's the rate of speed is gangbusters. And I think for the everyday person like me, it can feel overwhelming, and not sometimes in the best ways, because sometimes we can get excited with the overwhelm, and sometimes it's just like fear and what if I do things wrong and what does this actually mean? Can you give, in your opinion, what this transition looks like? And I want to talk about Connect United. What did you see that Connect, let me rephrase that. What part are Connect United playing in this transition to help someone like me, for example, who doesn't have your background, doesn't have your knowledge, but needs to move with where the world is going?
Absolutely. So we kind of got to live vicariously through this tech, call it adoption and advancement, just over the last like 10 or 15 years. We saw what the internet did. We saw what the iPhone did. blockchain, and I know it's a buzzword right now, is actually preparing to be a bigger transition than the internet was. And so understanding that, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about that, but we have a supercomputer in our pocket and, everybody's got their phone. What's interesting about the technology is we're finally at a point where the technology is teaching the technology. That's called recursive learning. And AI, or artificial intelligence, we've gotten it to a point where now AI is teaching future AI how to be better and faster and stronger. So this adoption curve of technology is actually exponential. And we're right at the foundation of what that momentum phase is going to look like. And so when we think about like the World Economic Forum back in 2021 stated that $867 trillion business revenue would get disrupted by blockchain technology. As a financial advisor managing significant amounts of wealth, that's something I need to have an understanding of because that is a massive disruption. And so if I think about this technology curve that we're on, I then have to think, well, how does that affect blockchain? And who's doing blockchain the best? And in my mind, it was Connect. But first, what is blockchain? We kind of have an idea of AI, but I'll explain it this way. A lot of us have heard of Bitcoin as like a cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that there's a framework of, call it blockchain. That's like the roads at which data moves. And when you think of a blockchain infrastructure, you're really just talking about like individual servers. We all think about those James Bond movies where it's like hacking this giant data room of these massive computers and servers where all this information is held. Well, that's how most companies operate in a centralized environment. Blockchain operates in a decentralized environment. Instead of one giant server room, you might have 100,000 servers spread around the globe, and they're all talking together through chains of information. And the data that gets passed along that chain is a block of information, hence blockchain technology. So really, it's just a decentralized server network. What can also get transferred in those blockchain pieces of information is a cryptocurrency. And the value that gets transferred from one wallet to another wallet. And that was the sort of idea of Bitcoin. It was like, wow, Nick, I'm here in Canada, you're here in Australia, I'm going to be in France tomorrow. Let's say we were doing a business deal. If I had to send you $1 million, I'd have to go back to the US, go into my bank or institution, draw up a letter of instruction, get a medallion signature guarantee, sign 1 million boxes like, hey, we're going to release this. And if it goes to the wrong place, like we're not liable. And maybe in 10 to 14 business days, you have your money. That's getting a little bit quicker, but that involves the US bank, an intermediary bank, an Australian bank. There's a lot of pieces. Or I can just pull out my phone and send you 10 Bitcoin and you have them in 3 minutes and the transaction's done because it's on this blockchain, which is called an immutable ledger. You can't change it. I know that my 10 Bitcoin went to your wallet. And so therefore, there is a sort of legal jurisdiction behind that to justify that I did, in fact, follow through with my side of the order, and you did, in fact, follow through with your side. So I say this because when people think blockchain, they think Bitcoin and crypto, and that's suffered a lot of like previous administration and scrutiny. But in reality, the biggest thing is, hey, we can transfer data across an immutable ledger through a decentralized server network. And so that really sets up this foundation for, well, how do we make money? And that's where I think of as a financial advisor is I'm paid to make money for my clients. How do we make money with that? And so when we think about blockchain technology, the US Postal Service has had the patent on blockchain technology since 2015. They could solve voter fraud overnight because everybody could have a specific encryption where when they cast their vote, we know it was their vote that was casted. And with AI powering the blockchain infrastructure, the future is going to change. The question is, those in charge, how quickly are they going to let it change? And that's teeing me up for another piece of this conversation of, well, what is Connect United? Connect United is a community that is building these blockchains where we can actually have businesses and their data run their information through a decentralized environment. And so let me digress and pull back to the 30,000-foot view. The one thing I'd want every listener to know is there's a fight between centralized and decentralized. And anybody that was in a country during COVID where things were shut down and things were like hyper regulatory and the authority was totalitarian, people are like, there has to be a better way. What can I do in that environment? Well, you can work on joining and building what are decentralized projects in a community. And so let me stop there really quick. I don't want to, put the cart before the horse, but what excited me about Connect is that they were a community of individuals who understood the value of decentralized infrastructure, who was way far ahead of their competitors when it came to the level of technology powering their blockchain. And they had a unified mission to bring value and sovereignty to the world. And that was a community that I felt I could really add value and wanted to first learn what it is they were doing. And now, not too long down the road, we're in a position to share it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
You've touched on some things there which I think are so fundamentally important to understand, and maybe they've just hit home for me, but one of my biggest values is freedom. And we speak a lot in our other business in Women to Wealth. It's all about sovereignty. How do you build a sovereign life? And one of the solutions to sovereignty is decentralization. It is setting up things that mirror your life, products, services, being able to, own your money, be in charge of your money, transfer your money, whether it's energy, whether it's health, whether it is food that you are buying, but in a decentralized space. And I know that's what connected myself and my business partner to this space. We're like, this is a pathway where women, but men, families can actually build a sovereign life. There's a couple of things that you said, and I've heard you say this before. You said cryptocurrency has been the biggest disconnect between people understanding the actual disruption of the technology that's behind it. That's what you're talking about, aren't you? Like, as a financial planner and someone who, as you said, your job is wealth management, wealth creation for people, you need to look at the indicators. Where are we going? In your opinion, why would a traditional financial planner tell their clients to look at something like the Connect United ecosystem and owning nodes, having ownership in this type of technology? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And to back to that quote, cryptocurrency is the biggest distraction to the biggest disruption of AI and blockchain. And so when people thought blockchain, they thought crypto, but it's like there's way more of a disruption happening with this level of technology. And there's a couple pieces I want to hit, and then I'll make that final piece of like, why am I doing this? Number one, Gary Vee really talks about what is true. Video evidence used to be the judge, juror, and executioner. If you were to go to Shanghai 10 years ago and you were to talk badly about the CPC or the Red Army, maybe you'd get a social credit score demotion and you might not get the job you wanted, or maybe you get demoted in your job. Well, governments that have unchecked authoritarian control, they can now hack your phone, find a video of you punching an old lady in the face, and absolutely ruin your life. And you have no authenticity check as to whether or not that video was true. And so blockchain technology on an immutable ledger transferring that data is going to be the source of truth when it comes to data integrity. And so there is a big need for blockchain. Now, building it into like a financial advisor, like what is Connect doing? My thought was, well, how do you make money in this space? Well, here's what I believe to be the future of cap stack raising. And what I mean by that is right now, if you had an idea and you needed investors to build that idea, and you built it through venture capital, private equity, investment banking, and you IPO on the open market, that's a long journey. That's a 7 to 10 year process. In the end, you might own a sliver of your company. And when people gave you money, it was very illiquid. They had to wait until the next valuation, and then they could get an offering or maybe get a sliver of that money back. But they're on a journey. They have no control. And when they gave you that money, there were no tax incentives for it. And they weren't incentivized to really help you beyond that. Like, you'd be a silent investor, but to be a strategic investor, if you don't have a skill level in that niche, you really could add no value. What's really interesting about Connect and the way they're building these blockchain projects, they stand up what's called a layer one blockchain. Just for this video, let's just talk about 100,000 nodes, which are the servers that individuals can buy. Now, when you buy a node, you become a part owner of this infrastructure. And so then you think, well, where's my money going and how do I get it back? As an investor, you say, okay, well, the money that's raised to purchase these nodes actually go into different businesses. And so a blockchain can support multiple different companies. And so like this right now, we're on the Rally blockchain. This is one of the companies called Rlink. They have another company called Opperly. And then there's another one coming called Pixa. And there's so many more to come. But the money used in the node sale will help fund that company. Now, when that company starts producing revenue, that revenue is going to go into a cryptocurrency token. So as a node owner, I actually receive daily distributions of those tokens or those crypto tokens for helping support the network. I invested in the node. The money was used to fund the companies produce revenue. The revenue goes into the token. I have all these tokens now that now have value. And the more revenue those businesses do, the higher the value of that token could be. What's really cool about this model, Nick, is that along that entire journey, I can get a tax deduction for buying that node because it's off-the-shelf software. And as I'm accumulating all of these tokens, I can actually become a strategic partner and help go build the community and get rewarded by receiving more tokens. So I might only be able to put in $10,000, but I could create more tokens in my wallet than someone who's in with $1 million who did nothing. So there's an opportunity for strategic partners. Plus, I can get out at any time. I can sell those tokens on the open market. I can sell them to another investor. Like, I can do what I want with my allocation at any point. I don't have to wait for Arlink and Opperly and Pixa to go do, 10 million in revenue before I decide to get a Series C exit valuation. So it's really cool so malleability of the liquidity of the opportunity. It's really cool to the potential scale of building a community of like-minded individuals who are all about sovereignty and building decentralized platforms that we all own. But it's also really cool from a potential ROI perspective, because if our link does more than Zoom in revenue, or Opperly starts to carve some of Claude's and ChatGPT's market share, and Pixa starts to capture some of TikTok's market share, there's a significant ROI opportunity with being some of the initial Capstack creators and founders of owning this decentralized platform. And so that really excites me. And what's really cool about Connect is the founder, Wright Thurston. He's been there, done that with a project called Gala Games. And that was really back in the 2021 timeframe, where they kind of litmus tested this model. Now, there were some pieces there they've learned, but in our blockchain projects and community that are, I think there's 10 projects now. There's decentralized communication and commerce and AI with Rally, and there's the financial blockchain Switch, who I've partnered with as a founder for Plan X. There's the agricultural blockchain Grow. There's the health and wellness blockchain Galvin. There's the gaming blockchain Adventure World. There's the mining and element blockchain Element. And now there's the blockchain called Codex. And then the list goes on, and there's Green, the energy blockchain. There's a philanthropic blockchain, Give. Like, this is really exciting stuff that we're building, because multiple companies out there are going to want to use our data infrastructure so that they can protect their data. And that's why I really like this community, and people like you who, you're in Australia, and we're connecting and talking about the future and what that could look like.
Yeah, I love that. And you are right. I mean, the minds, the experience, the people coming into this, that's what's blown my mind and helped my education the last couple of years. And I think you just nailed it there with why certain people, moving themselves, whether it be on one side, there is the marketplace of decentralization. Like, we said about node ownership, and you said you can sell and, sell your tokens, all of that. You can also use them. Like, I use my Grow tokens to buy the meat that is stocking my freezer 15 meters away, so it's that utility of it as well. Am I right in saying that we've definitely moved out of the Wild West side of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, and we're really, again, my opinion, it's not up for debate? This is where the world is moving. This is what is being adopted. And if that is the case, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this and I'm going, okay, so I know that this is happening. How do I get involved? Where do I start?
Yeah, it's definitely, you're a part of a very fast changing world. And like you said at the beginning of this, like, you can feel excited, but you can also feel overwhelmed. The one thing I would say to anybody is, like, I've been using AI for years. And when people say they're in AI, are they in the energy, the chips? Are they in the infrastructure, their software, the applications? Like, some people just use ChatGPT to Google things, and they're now an AI expert. So it's, there's some facades getting created, or like some founders will put together these elaborate business plans, and you're like, all right, so how'd you get your terminal value? And they're like, let me check Claude artifacts and see. But what's interesting about where we're at right now is you do have AI as a supercomputer in your pocket, and it's the best teacher that we could ever have. Like, I love teaching, but if I'm ever trying to explain something, like, go ask AI, have it explain to you like a 2-year-old. But what I would say is, I got tired of going into ChatGPT and say, hey, like, I've got a weird lump on my shoulder, just asking for a friend. Like, I don't want the government knowing that I'm like a defector when it comes to my health, even though I don't, but I want that data about my personal life in a decentralized vault and that I own that data. And so this big fight of centralized and decentralized, like, download Opperly. Like, if there's someone in this community that have them send you a link for Opperly, sign up for the $50 a month, and start putting your data into a system that you actually own that data. And that AI will teach you everything you need to know about blockchain, AI, the Connect community, how to participate. I mean, you can input the node governance doctrine and have it explain to you about how all of this works, because it is overwhelming. And so I would say what this future is going to look like. Just one quick story, and then I'll digress. My buddy Nick runs a hedge fund out of Newport Beach, the smartest human you could ever imagine. You could talk to him and be like, hey, Nick, talk to me about Brazil. And he'd be like, oh, well, back in 850 AD, like there was this giant war. Like, he could tell you everything about anything that has ever occurred. And I said, Nick, now that AI's out, I can now get that information. Do you feel like some of your thunder's getting stole? And he's like, no, now I have AI. And I was like, there are going to be people that understand what's coming and dive in head first and start learning every single day. And there's just going to be people left behind. It happened a lot when the internet came out. Like, businesses that failed to use the internet just went bankrupt. And businesses that adopted it quickly made a ton of money. That same thing is going to happen with blockchain, because think of Zoom. They have a centralized server room. It was hacked in 2022 and over 50 million customers had their data breached. Like, AI is going to be a huge advancement, but it can also be a huge threat for hacking. And so if you have centralized data, your business is at risk. And so how do you create authenticity of that data and protect it? You need to operate on a decentralized infrastructure, and businesses will realize that. And the Connect community is so far ahead when it comes to setting up those layer one blockchains that businesses will be knocking at the door saying, hey, can I get into your community? Can I get into your infrastructure? And how does this, the token work with my revenue? We're here to take that on, but we're at the ground floor of that. And so it's really exciting in that space, but it's adapt or die, really. And I'm very optimistic, and I'm just saying it's adapt or learn, learn or fall behind. I don't know, whatever's kosher. I said to a client, there's many ways to skin a cat, and she was so offended because she had like 11 cats. And I was like, I don't know another way to say that, but I should ask AI, because I'm sure they could come up with an analogy. But
absolutely. Adam, love that so much. Thank you. You are a wealth of knowledge, and everything you say just makes it make sense. So I appreciate you and your time, and would love to do another call with you really soon, but so appreciate everything that you've shared.
Absolutely, Nick. Anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So much, Adam. We'll talk soon.